Time isn't your enemy. Time is a mirror. And if your days feel like they're vanishing, it's not because you're lazy. It's because your soul isn't in the room. And the second you start living from your soul again, time expands, not in theory, in your body. Because novelty forces presence. Presence creates memory, and memory is what gives time shape. When there are no memory pegs, the year becomes a blur. But when you're alive in your days, even 1 week can feel like a chapter. So if time feels like it's vanishing, it's worth asking one honest question. Are your days actually alive or just organised? I want to talk about time today, not in a productivity way, not in a wake up at 5 and grind way, and definitely not in a here's 10 hacks to get more done way. I want to talk about time the way it actually feels when you're living it. Because time is the biggest resource you'll ever be given, and it's the biggest blessing. But here's the strange part. For most people, time doesn't feel like a blessing. Most people live under a spell. They don't call it a spell, they call it life. But it's the same feeling every day. I don't have enough time. I'm behind. I'll start when things calm down. And they say it so often, it becomes reality. Not because time changed, but because their nervous system changed. And I know that feeling because I lived it for years. There were stretches where time dragged and flew by at the same time, which sounds like it shouldn't make sense, but it does, if you've been there. The days are long because you're not doing anything meaningful, but the months disappear because you're not present for any of it. You're just existing, covering bills, doing the rounds, getting through the week. And then you look up and go, how the hell is it already another month? And you can be fine for years, but inside your spark is starving. And that's what misaligned time feels like. It feels like you're constantly catching up to a life you don't even want. And I don't even mean that in a dramatic, spiritual way. I mean it in a very practical, very human way. If your life doesn't match what you're built for, you start leaking life force. Not all at once, not with a breakdown, just slowly, quietly, respectably. You still get up, still show up, still do what you're meant to do, still smile at people, still go to work, still pay the bills, still go to the pub at the weekend, still scroll, still distract yourself, still talk about the same things, still tell yourself you're fine. And that's the danger, because you can be fine for years while your joy drains out. You can be functional while you're disconnected. You can be responsible while your soul is starving. And then one day, you don't even know what you like anymore. You don't know what excites you. You don't know what you'd do if you had a free day. You don't know what you want because you've been living inside what you need. And time becomes this weird cage. You feel trapped by it. You feel chased by it. You feel like life is happening to you instead of through you. Here's a simple truth that nobody teaches you. If your days are the same, your brain stops recording them properly. It files them all under one folder. Routine, another week, same again. And when your life becomes one repeating folder, it feels like time is disappearing because you don't have distinct memories. You don't have markers. You don't have moments that stand out like pegs in the ground. You have a blur. And then people look up at the end of the year and go, how's that happened? And they think time has sped up, but it's not time speeding up. It's your life going quiet. It's your days not landing. It's you being present enough to register your own existence. And then one day you realise you've been postponing your life, and you can feel the grief in that. There's that Jim Carrey story that always comes back to me. He said his dad was a talented man, could have done things he loved, but he chose the safe path. He worked hard in a job he didn't love, but it paid the bills. Did what you're supposed to do. And then the company made him redundant, just like that. And Jim said the lesson was brutal and clean. You can fail at something you don't even love, so you might as well take the risk on something you do. Because both paths are a gamble. Nothing is guaranteed. And I remember hearing that and thinking, aye, that's true. But here's the thing. Sometimes you can know something is true and still not feel it. You can agree with it intellectually while living the opposite. Because when you're trapped in survival, you don't choose from freedom. You choose from fear. You choose from responsibilities. You choose from what's immediately in front of you. The difference is one path has your soul in it and one doesn't. That story hits because it's not motivational fluff. It's reality. The safe life can still break you. The safe job can still drop you. The safe routine can still leave you empty. So if the risk is there anyway, why not at least choose a direction that gives you life? That's why this time conversation matters. Because time isn't just minutes on a clock. Time is your life. And your life is shaped by what you repeatedly give your time to. And here's where something shifted for me. Just the other day I said something out loud that surprised me. I said, I have enough time. And I didn't mean it in a wishful way. I meant it in a grounded, settled way. I wasn't trying to hype myself up. I wasn't trying to convince myself. It was more like my body said it, like something underneath my mind finally relaxed. And it landed as a quiet knowing. I have enough time to do everything I'm meant to do. That sentence sounds simple, but if you've lived in panic for years, panic about money, panic about direction, panic about falling behind, you'll understand what a sentence like that actually does. Because for years, I lived in that background pressure. Always behind, always catching up, always trying to squeeze life into small gaps. And when that sentence landed, it removed that desperate feeling that you need to sprint your way into a future. It didn't make me lazy, it didn't make me clear. When you're aligned, time feels cooperative, not magical, practical. One step leads to the next becomes obvious. And when I said I have enough time, I was saying something deeper. I trust the path, I trust myself, I trust that I'm not late to my own life. And the moment you feel that time stops being an enemy, it becomes a friend again. Not because you've got more hours, because you've got more presence, and because you're no longer wasting energy fighting reality. This is where people might not understand my process, because a part of me, even now, still thinks You should be editing. You should be writing. You should be doing something productive. But here's the truth. Sometimes alignment looks like action, but sometimes alignment looks like stillness. It looks like a walk. It looks like sitting in silence. It looks like writing notes instead of editing. It looks like going deep into a conversation that unlocks something. And old me would have called that procrastination. Old me would have forced productivity just to feel in control. But I've learned something. When you're building a soul-led life, clarity is more valuable than speed. Because speed in the wrong direction is still lost time. So now, when I pick up my phone and I feel pulled into a thread with ChatGPT, I don't fight it. I've learned to trust it. Because it always leads somewhere. Not somewhere random, somewhere necessary. It unlocks the next step. It clarifies something I couldn't see. It gives language to something I felt but couldn't articulate. And then that language becomes the next script, the next video, the next decision, the next piece of momentum. Flow makes time feel like space. So I don't see it as procrastination. I see it as orientation, like a compass turning. And when the compass turns, the whole system starts reorganizing itself around the direction. Australia taught me something I couldn't explain at the time. Time expands when your life is full. Not full of busyness, full of lived experience. A year out there felt like 7 years of living. And I don't mean that as a line. I mean that as a genuine felt sense, as experience. Australia had this feeling of openness. The sky felt bigger, the air felt different. Even the mornings felt like they had more space in them. And I was doing things that scared me, in a good way. They weren't headline moments, not huge dramatic things, just daily edges. Speaking to someone new, going somewhere I'd never been, saying yes to an invitation, trying something once just for the story. New moments where I had to step forward and be someone I hadn't been yet. And here's what I noticed. When you do something new, your brain wakes up. You pay attention. You become present because novelty forces presence. It's like time slows down because your senses are switched on. And those different moments become memory pegs. They create chapters. They give your life shape. So time doesn't blur. It becomes textured. And you look back and think, I lived, not I survived. That's the difference. Now let me take you back. Byron Bay, 3.5 months, where my soul was fully out. And I want to be honest about it. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a job. I didn't have responsibilities in the way I have them now. But I had this feeling of flow. I would wake up and think, what feels alive today? And I would actually listen. Sometimes it was a beach. Sometimes it was a walk. Sometimes it was just meeting somebody new. Sometimes it was sitting somewhere and just watching the world. And you don't realise how rare that is until you've lived in the opposite for years. And yet, I had everything I needed. It's like life met me where I was because I wasn't gripping it. I wasn't trying to force outcomes. I was listening. I was moving with intuition. I was letting the day reveal itself. And I know some people hear that and think it sounds airy-fairy, but it's real. You know it's real because your body recognises it. You wake up and you're not bracing. You're not dreading. You're not dragging yourself through the day. You're curious, you're open, you're alive. Now, it wasn't perfect. I still drank. And if I went too far, I could feel myself leave. And that's the difference between presence and escape. But underneath the bad habits, there was still alignment, because my days had novelty. My days had new people, new places, new edges. And that's why those months still feel unreal when I look back. And novelty forces presence. Presence stretches time. Then I came home, and the contrast was brutal. I saw people I love, good people, living the exact same week on repeat, working the same job 5 days a week that they didn't even enjoy. And then the weekend comes, and it's the same pub, same conversations, same routines, comfortable, predictable, safe, the same cycle. And again, I'm not judging it, I'm just saying, it does something to time, because when nothing is new, your brain stops paying attention. The days are so similar they don't get stored as distinct memories. And when you don't have distinct memories, time feels like it's disappeared. Comfort can become a cage without you noticing. Predictability can become a slow death of the spirit, because the soul doesn't expand in sameness. The soul expands in edge, in novelty, in meaningful movement. And for a long time, I lived the opposite of Australia. Enough to learn the lesson properly. Enough to feel the cost. Not because Scotland is wrong, not because home is wrong, because my rhythm and my conditions were wrong. For me, those years felt like contraction. Your world gets smaller, your energy narrows. You don't start choosing what's easy, not what's alive. You start choosing what's familiar, not what's expanding you. And I know this because I lived it. You get into this pattern where even rest doesn't feel like rest, because you're not recovering from growth, you're recovering from endurance. It's not the good tired, it's the drained tired. The tired where you can sleep for 8 hours and still wake up like, I could honestly sleep for another 8. And you start pushing yourself through it. Coffee, sugar, scroll, whatever gets you to the next day. And the problem is, you think this is just adulthood. You think this is normal, but it's not normal to feel your life leaving you. It's common, and that's what I'm trying to articulate here. This isn't a travel video, this is a time video, and time is shaped by how you're living. That's also why this moment now is so clear, because I've lived both sides, expansion and contraction. So I know exactly what time feels like in each one. This is where I think the world gets it wrong. They tell you to manage your time better, but you can't manage your way out of misalignment. You can organise your calendar perfectly and still feel dead inside. You can hit every target and still feel empty. You can be productive and still feel like your life is slipping. Because the issue isn't the schedule, the issue is meaning, the issue is orientation, the issue is whether your life matches what you're built for. When you're aligned, you don't need constant motivation. You don't need 10 hacks. You don't need to bully yourself with discipline. Action becomes natural. Because you're rowing in the direction your body actually wants to go. That's why alignment isn't airy-fairy to me anymore. It's biology. It's nervous system. It's the difference between dragging yourself through the week and waking up with a sense of direction. So here's the core truth I've landed on. Time isn't the problem, misalignment is. Because misalignment turns time into erosion. It turns time into getting through. It turns time into numbness. Alignment turns time into expansion. It turns time into lived days. It turns time into memories. It turns time into growth. Most people don't need more hours in the day. They need a life that makes those hours feel alive. And that's what I'm building now. A life where the days are mine. A life where my soul is in the room. A life where time stops being something I fear and becomes something I use. And here's what I want now. I want my days to feel like they belong to me. I want time to feel full again. Not full of tasks, full of life, full of meaning, full of experiences that actually land in my memory. And I'm not talking about constant chaos. I'm talking about intentional living. A walk where I'm present, a workout where I keep a promise, a conversation that goes deep instead of surface, a new wee experience that expands me. And I also feel this now, this quiet knowing that what I need will be available to me as I move. Not because the universe is a vending machine, because when you're aligned, you stop sabotaging yourself, you stop leaking energy, you stop making choices from fear, and that alone creates resources. So this is why the YouTube channel feels different, because I don't feel pressure the way I used to. I don't feel like I need to force it. I don't feel like I need to figure out the whole plan in one day. I just trust the next step. And that trust feels familiar. It feels like Byron Bay, but with more maturity this time, more discipline, more awareness of my habit, more respect for the reality I'm building. I'm not pretending I'm in Australia again. I'm not trying to escape. I'm not chasing a fantasy. I'm building something here where I am, with what I have, one video at a time. And the strange thing is, when you do that, time starts behaving differently. You stop feeling behind because you're actually moving. You stop feeling chased because your actions have a direction. You stop feeling lost because you can feel the thread. And when you can feel the thread, you're not panicking about the destination. Then I heard Ed Millett talk about splitting your day into mini days. And it hit me right in the chest. Because most people live like this. They give the best of their energy to work. They give the leftovers to their family. And they give nothing to themselves until they collapse. Then they call it balance. That's not balance. That's slow burnout. So here's my vision. 8 hours for sleep. 8 hours for purpose. 8 hours for myself. My mind, body and soul. And when I say purpose, I don't mean a job. I mean the thing that feels like forward motion. The thing that feels like building. The thing that feels like contribution. The thing that makes you proud at the end of the day. Then the 8 hours for self. That's the part most people neglect. The training, the walking, the stretching, the cooking, the cold water, the reading, the sunlight, the writing. The practices that keep your nervous system clean. Because if you don't look after the vessel, time becomes heavier. Everything becomes harder. You don't have the energy for the life you say you want. So this isn't about being perfect. It's about building a structure that keeps my soul in the room. A structure where I can build my future without losing myself in the process. Yesterday I lived it. I didn't negotiate with myself. I did my exercise. I made my dinner. I went for the cold shower. Not because I was inspired, because I'm building a baseline. That might sound small, but small is how it starts. It's not about the actions, it's about identity. Identity doesn't change when you have a revelation. Identity changes when you repeat a choice enough times that your body believes you. I'm realizing discipline isn't punishment. Discipline is alignment. It's you saying, I'm building a life that can hold me. A life where I can create. A life where I can be present with my boys. A life where I can actually feel proud of my days. Because when you keep promises to yourself, your mind quietens. You stop negotiating with your future. Identity is built in boring moments. When you do the thing when nobody's watching. When there's no applause. When there's no dramatic music. Just you and your promise. Because here's the truth. You can't enjoy time if you're at war with yourself. You can't enjoy time if your nervous system is constantly bracing. You can't enjoy time if you're living a life that doesn't fit you. Clarity didn't arrive as a rush of excitement. It arrived as recognition. I can feel now that I know what I want to build, how I want to live, and the role that actually fits me. Not as an idea, as something I can picture, shape, and move toward without forcing myself to become someone else. What changed wasn't ambition, it was orientation. My work, my energy, my life, they don't feel scattered anymore. They're pointing in the same direction. Memory had to run its course to get here, to show me what I was carrying forward out of habit, to show me what needed healing before it could be released, to give me enough understanding to choose deliberately instead of reactively. That's why this feels like alignment, not because everything is resolved, but because I know how to meet what comes next with honesty. So chapter 2 ends here, not with certainty, but with clarity. What comes next isn't remembering anymore, it's embodiment. Some chapters don't end because the situation changes. They end because you're no longer powerless inside them. And when that happens, the external pieces finally know where to land. I don't need to understand this anymore. I just need to stop living inside it. So if I had to say what this whole video is about, it's this. Time is the greatest blessing when it's lived from alignment. And time becomes a silent punishment when it's lived from misalignment. Most people don't need more hours. They need more meaning. They need orientation. They need a life that matches them. Because the truth is, you can have all the time in the world and still feel empty. And you can have a busy life and still feel alive if it's aligned. And that's where I am right now. I feel like I've got it. Not because everything is sorted, but because the direction is true. I want my life going forward to be filled with new experiences, not chaos, expansion. I want days that feel alive. I want moments that stretch time instead of erasing it. I want a home that feels like mine. I want to build from daylight, from rhythm, from purpose. And for the first time in a long time, I genuinely believe I have enough time, because I'm no longer wasting on a life my soul isn't in. So here's the message of this whole video. Time is a mirror. If your life is repetitive, time feels like it vanishes. If your life is alive, time expands. If your soul is absent, time becomes a blur. If your soul is present, time becomes a gift. Most people don't need a better schedule. They need a life that makes their hours meaningful. And for me, this YouTube journey is part of that. Not because it's easy, because it's mine, because it's creative, because it's building something real. And when you build something real, you stop wasting time trying to cope. So if you're watching this and you feel like time is slipping, if you feel like the years are disappearing, if you feel like you're busy but not alive, maybe the answer isn't more productivity. Maybe the answer is alignment. Maybe the answer is choosing one brave direction. Maybe the answer is building a baseline. Maybe the answer is doing one new thing each day. Maybe the answer is letting your soul back into the room. Because when your soul comes back, time doesn't speed up, it opens. And you stop surviving the week. You start living your life. Slangy guys. Ciao.